Good evening, you are watching Goa 365 and I am Nisa Dias here to remind you of the people and events that made news in the week that went by. It was a week when Goa was plunged into yet another political crisis, with the ruling members itself revolting. However, their plans to embarrass the government failed as Chief Minister got the whiff of it and got the Speaker to adjourn the House. The 7-month-old Digambar-led government was reduced to a minority last week, but in utter violation of Constitution of India, trampling upon rules of parliamentary procedures, and in the most undemocratic manner, the Governor of Goa, seg2 is propping up a minority government. And in the most dishonorable manner, Digambar Kamath continues to cling on to power. 3 Nationalist Party MLAs, an SGF MLA led by independent MLA Vishwajit Rane, led the coup and sought to pull the rug from under the feet of the Chief Minister by defeating the finance bill that was supposed to be passed in the House. It is mandatory on the part of the Chief Minister to resign if he fails to get the bill passed. As soon as the Chief Minister scuttled their plans, all the hell broke loose. Tourism Minister Miki Pacheco, Revenue Minister Jose Philip D'Souza, Health Minister Vishwajit Rane and NCP MLA Nilkan Halankar withdrew their support to the government. Immediately thereafter, Taligaon MLA Babush Monserrat, Save Goa Front Kurtorim MLA Alex Reginald Lorenzo lent support to the group. Congress MLAs Sham Sadaddekar and Gurudas Gowns joined them. It was the wit of the young MLAs versus the experience of veteran MLAs. The rebels demanded that Dayanand Narvekar, Ravi Naik and Churchill Alemao be stripped of their portfolios. Last week, the winter session of the Assembly commenced, and as soon as the Governor stood to address the House, Opposition Leader Manohar Parrikar questioned the sanctity of the Governor's address, as his last address was not discussed in the House. Of course, Parrikar has an axe to grind with the Governor for dismissing his government in 2005 and more recently in July 2007, assisting minority government led by Digambar Kamath government to continue. That Bharatiya Janata Party had planned to embarrass the head of the state was evident as BJP Yuva Morcha members had lined up the new Pato bridge with black flags, and the time of the governor's motorcade was on its way to the assembly complex. And while Parrikar was questioning the sanctity of the governor's address, his MLAs brought placards inside the house and were shouting, "Zamir, go home." But then in 2005, to cling to power, Parrikar had trampled upon sanctity and dignity of the house when he invited police to bodily lift Philip Neri Rodriguez out of the house. And now, see who's preaching about sanctity. And now to analyze the governor's address, it is very evident that His Excellency S.C. Jamir, speechwriter, does not refer to earlier speeches, as in January 2007, the governor had congratulated his then government led by Pratap Singh Rane for setting up special economic zones in Goa. Ironically, this time round, he has congratulated his government for scrapping the SEZs. It makes us wonder, if his inaugural addresses do not have direction, how will his government have one? In 2007, the governor had said that the power sector was heading in the right direction and very soon Goa would be a modern state in the country. This time round, Jamir says that his government is committed to provide better power supply to the people of the state. We think that there is a vast difference in the statements, because if in a year the emphasis on power sector heading in the right direction becomes committed, then either the government has fumbled somewhere or His Excellency has to change his script writer. The tone for toppling the government was set last week with Nationalist Congress Party General Secretary Tariq Anwar saying that they are not happy with the government as the Congress does not take them into confidence. He had lamented that only 2 of the 3 MLAs had been given berths in the ministry. All this in the presence of the State Unit President Dr. Wilfred D'Souza. Last week, the government was assuring the House to minimize road accident in the state. However, 13 people perished in a major road accident at Pernem. Chief Minister informed the members that he has requested his Maharashtra counterpart Vilasrao Deshmukh to depute Pashrija after his retirement to formulate traffic system in Goa. This dream of Mr. Kamath is unlikely to be fulfilled as his government has been reduced to a minority and is only holding on to the chair at the pleasure of His Excellency S.C. Jamir. Last week, the police did a fantastic job. In a matter of 48 hours, they reunited 18-month-old Maraya with her mother and granny after being kidnapped by the housemaid along with her paramo and one other person. The accused, after kidnapping the child, left a ransom note for Rs 50 lakhs in exchange of the baby, while Sanzad Ali, paramour of the maid Rekha, remained behind to collect the money. The maid along with the other accomplice, namely Sarfaraz, left for Agra on the Mangala Express. Luckily, Police Inspector Vishwesh Karpe was on the same train. After receiving a photograph of the child on his cell phone through multimedia messaging service, popularly known as MMS, from his colleague, he went about checking the train. His luck paid off as he chanced upon the kidnappers along with the child in one of the compartments, and as they alighted at Agra, they were nabbed and flown down to Goa. We hope that it does some good to P.I. Karpe's credibility, as in recent times it had taken a beating, with even a High Court Justice branding him as an useless officer and had ordered a case transferred from him to the crime branch. The Chief Minister was trying to fulfill his promises that he would hear the grievances of the people before going ahead with the project. Hundreds of people culminated at the site and impressed upon him that the area being a heritage zone, the garbage treatment plant should not be set up there. Last week saw the opposition dissecting minister after minister during the now truncated winter assembly session. On the fifth day of the session, it was turn of IT Minister Dayanand Narvekar to answer a barrage of questions on his pet project, the IT habitat at Dona Paula. Surprisingly, Talegaon MLA Babush Montserrat seems to have come well prepared to nail IT Minister. In fact, it was quite obvious that the former Town and Country Planning Minister had attended Manohar Parrikar's tutorial classes, which are undertaken for BJP MLAs before assembly session. However, Dayanand Narvekar stood his ground and exposed Babush for being part of the government at the time of approving the project. Narvekar even went to the extent of informing the House that the area demarcated for the project was as per the outward development plan prepared by the Talegaon MLA himself. However, the IT Minister stood exposed for using IT corporation funds for development of his constituency. Exerting pressure at the other end was social activist Iris Rodriguez, who knocked on the doors of the High Court through a writ petition, praying for direction to the police to register his complaint against IT Minister Dayanand Narvekar, alleging land scam while allotment of plots at IT Habitat. The plans to topple Digambar government for the second time in 7 months started taking shape, with Talegaon and Kurtorim MLAs showing their willingness to join the NCP. While Babush Montserrat is an unattached member, as he was expelled from the UGDP for supporting the Congress after trying to topple it last July, Reginaldo Lorenzo is still an MLA of the Save Goa front. Dr. Wilfred D'Souza was more than willing to accept them as members of his party, but the crumbs he was feeding the public was that their entry would not only increase the strength of the NCP in Goa, but would also strengthen the government. But in reality, what has happened is that it has reduced the government to a minority.